should a man date or marry a woman who doesn't have a good relationship with her father?
Well, I would say that if you as a man, if you as a young man would have that rule, like, look, to make sure I don't get in trouble, if I see, a girl has a problem with men in general or with her father to begin with, I just don't want to date a woman like that because it could be trouble. Let's say I wouldn't tell him that it's wrong, but of course, sometimes you might meet women where there is a reason, a particular reason maybe, where they don't get along, but it doesn't mean she will not be able to have a good marriage. But I understand, let's say, why some men don't want that. Or a
Yeah.
woman who has no father, who has a very dominant mom, maybe no man in the household, maybe a general negative view when it comes to men. I mean, I had that too for many years as a young lady, so I understand. Same with single mothers. Should you date a single mom?
Right. I was going to ask, should a man date a woman that, should a man date or marry a woman that already have children, have a child or children? And especially if she's been married before, but not only, should a man get involved with a woman who already has a family?
Again, I understand men who say, look, it's just not worth the risk for me.
Right.
I understand them, and I think they absolutely have the right to have that preference to just not date or commit to a woman who already has children from a previous marriage or previous relationships, because that's what I see often. Women who have 3 kids from 2 different men, and then they have another new boyfriend, and I sometimes don't understand why men would not think twice.
Yeah.
Because maybe there is a pattern. Maybe this woman really has a difficulty with bonding or with, I don't know. They always can say, oh no, but it was the man's fault. I think it always takes 2.
It does.
So it does. And of course, I have a lot of empathy for women who maybe are fatherless, so they don't even know how to commit because their mother never did. So I understand really where that comes from. But I think men as a whole don't owe you particular understanding, or you don't deserve special treatment, or a man doesn't have to pay for your problems. And I have experienced that myself. My current significant other is a great, great guy. And he once told me, like, look, I understand what happened to you in childhood. I totally get it. But sometimes there's things you say, where I sometimes stay quiet, but let me tell you now, that's not my problem. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
If other people hurt you, so please try not to do that. And I fully understand. He's totally right. So if you're not willing to correct yourself and to get rid of those patterns somehow, then, you cannot expect a good guy to actually tolerate that.
I noticed that, I also realized that a man should not, or a woman really, should not get involved with another man or a woman while they have children, because the kids yearn for their natural father, and they don't want a stepmother or stepfather. They only want their fathers. But the parents are so selfish that because they're all about themselves, and so let the kids suffer by bringing a step parent into their lives and making the kids even more angrier, adding to the anger by doing that. And the parents don't care, the mothers don't care, and the kids suffer even more so.
That happens a lot, and I myself have a little bit of first-hand experience. I mean, my sister and I don't have the same father. We're 7 years apart. And I think my mother was still dealing with stuff herself. She also had an absent father.
Yeah.
Her situation was a completely different one because she grew up in a nuclear family. But let's say her real father was a mystery till a certain age. People back then were ashamed of these things, so they didn't really address it. So she grew up with a loving family, and she says she had a very nice childhood, actually, a very beautiful one. But she didn't meet her biological father till much later, and he never really was much in the picture. So I think she carried her own trauma and stuff too.
Yeah.
So when she had my sister, again, it was with a man who wasn't really interested in commitment. So he didn't really act like a proper stepdad or somebody who would really step in. So it wasn't the best experience for me. And I saw a lot of patchwork families. That's what they call them, right? At least in Europe, they do. Um, I've met a lot of people with these constellations, like two people marry and they already have kids from previous relationships. And it can turn out quite well, and that everybody gets along and they co-parent with their, fathers, mothers. But it also, I mean, I think it doesn't go well in many, many cases. And some kids don't even speak up to say, look, mom, I just don't want to deal with these kids. They're not good to me, or he's not good to me. I just don't like it. I mean, it's like the family that was actually theirs doesn't exist anymore. And now they're forced to be in a situation where the parents, the mother or the father is happy. I think people should think twice and really analyze why they're doing that. And I don't say it to judge people or to mean that all blended families are bad, but I think it really needs very conscious people who think, mature people to be able to pull that off, taking into account the kids.
Were women created to lead or follow?
I believe to follow.
Nice. And why do men get with women that's trying to lead them? Because women hate weak men. They want you to be strong.
Yes.
They want you to be strong, but they'll take you if you're weak and destroy you. Why do men listen to women? Why do you think they follow women, knowing that women were created to follow and not lead?
Very, very good question. And I hate, no, I don't hate. I know that the radical feminists are going to hate me for saying this. They sometimes comment on my profile and tell me that I'm sexist, that I'm a misogynist, that I hate women and mothers. And well, if they think that, so be it. There is plenty of women that I help who seem to get it, so
absolutely.
They don't have a problem with me. But what I want to make very clear is that I'm not against women having a profession or leading in a particular context, or leading their kids when it's necessary, when they're in charge of their kids. Of course, they need to listen to you. But I think that it's very rare to find a woman who's actually suited to have that, to how do you say it in English? A woman that is really suited to develop that role or to excel in a role of high leadership. I think that's really rare. And I believe women are often not telling the truth because if you look in many Western countries, who is voting for the head of state or something? I mean, women are not always voting for the women. If there is a candidate, they seem to know that men make good leaders. That's why they vote the men. So I don't know the exact numbers on that. And I always try to tell people, like, I don't live in the US. I don't only talk for the US. I try to speak for, the Western countries, also in Europe and Canada and stuff. And you see that in some countries, even more women vote than men in certain places. And there is more women than men in the world. So I believe many women hate to hear that leadership is, that men are actually the natural leaders. I mean, it took me many years myself to understand that. And it's because I had no father in the home. So in my home, my mom was God. She was the only reference person I had. She was the only one taking responsibility. And I must say, I had a good mother who was disciplined, who was very industrious, who did what she could really to give us a good life and give us a good education and stuff. And she taught me many, many things. But she sometimes said that when I was already in my late teens and early 20s, I heard her say, like, look, I know, that my life has, is the way it is, but actually I'm like the man in the house. But this is not the way that I should be operating, Actually, the man should give the security, should provide, should solve certain things. I shouldn't have to worry about that, but well, that's what it is. So if I have to do it, I will, to the best of my ability. And to your question, why do men listen to women? I actually believe Jordan Peterson explained that very well. I listened to him once say that of course women who have a problem with men, they either had a problem with their father or didn't have one, or they will often look for men that they can control and manipulate so they don't feel threatened by the man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess it's these men who listen to women or let them lead. Often it's, they either pick these women because maybe they have a problem too. I don't know what happened with them.
Yeah, they have a
That
mama
they
problem.
want to submit. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but what I'm sure, and I've seen this with a lot of baby boomers, women who ended up being divorced once, twice, three times, who then end up in the end picking a man who's weak. Where I think, why the hell, after two divorces and family and being being a woman with experience who's not dumb, who's educated. I don't know, why do you want to spend the last 30 years of your life with a guy who's weak? And
Amazing.
everybody sees it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's their thing. They think they feel less threatened by men who are weak. That's
Amazing.
my opinion.
And then they hate the man for it.
Yes.
I also see that a man should never, ever, ever, but never, 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 ever, 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 never, 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 ever, 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 never, never, never marry a woman who is educated and a woman who is educated. Because I know that women are already angry because they didn't have fathers growing up. But when they're educated, they really go on a big ego trip. And so an educated woman would never make for a good wife and a mother. So I advise men not to marry a woman she's been educated. What do you think about that?
I will tell you this. I understand why you're saying it, and I understand why, let's say, where the idea comes from.
Yes.
But I think it depends also on the country, on what education women are getting and what their general disposition is. Because, okay, let me make this example. I have heard wealthy, affluent guys, who have leadership in their firms or, wherever they are operating in. They are leaders and people listen to them. They're in charge of stuff. They have, very skilled men who actually have a lot of options. They're still quite young. They could marry any woman they want. And some of them I've heard say, look, what I don't want is a woman who's never agreeable, who's always combative and who competes with me, but
Yeah.
a woman who has an education and I can take her anywhere. She maybe has, back in the day, they used to give, a lot of rich families used to give their daughters like, how do you call it? An education, very humanistic, or that included literature, art, culture. So they were actually able to conduct themselves a certain way so they would know what people talk about, say, does it make sense?
I've
Because
heard.
they thought that it was good for young ladies or for women to have an education, but they didn't educate them, I don't know, to be the same as a man.
Right.
And I think that's where the problem comes. If you go to university because they told you men and women are exactly the same, there's no difference. Back in the day, they didn't let you go to med school because you were oppressed. But now that you can go, and that's going to be more important than anything, and being a housewife is somehow degrading, or that you're dumb or don't accomplish anything in your life, that's the problem. If you chose a profession because you don't think men and women have a difference at all, and you think that's going to be the most important thing, then you have a problem. If you have a lady who has an education, but she wants to be a wife because family is really important to her, and she knows that complementing her man is the goal and not competing or, always sticking out everywhere. Well, it's a complex issue. I mean, it has to do with cultural things. How do you conduct yourself as a woman,